Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1138 of the Juicebox Podcast. Kerrie is a nurse. She has Hashimoto's. Her son Liam is 3 and has type 1 diabetes, diagnosed at 14 months old. Kerrie's sister and aunt both have type 1 diabetes. Kerrie wanted to come on the podcast because she said that without the show, she wouldn't be able to do what she's doing for her son and that she wasn't getting answers from her doctors. We spend a lot of time talking about little kids in type 1, and I have some remembrances about raising Arden with type 1 diabetes. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink ag1.com/juicebox. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome a brand new sponsor to the show, Eversense CGM. I don't have an ad for you yet, but I want to welcome Eversense and let you know that there are links in the show notes right now if you're looking for them, but you'll be hearing more about that implantable CGM very soon here on the Juicebox Podcast. Welcome, Eversense. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
My name is Kerrie, and I am a mom of a 3-year-old type 1.
Is that child your only child?
I have a 9-month-old.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's very nice. A 3 and a 9. You're married for how long?
11 years.
Did you not know? Were you counting?
It's so funny. My anniversary is next week, and I'm like, I don't even know how long I've been married for.
Life
happens.
Did you buy a gift or something?
We're gonna go on vacation, actually.
Oh, that sounds like a gift. That's nice.
Yeah.
My anniversary was just 7 days ago.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Oh, you're very nice. Thank you. You're now the first woman to wish me happy anniversary. So
honored.
because it was the day before, and my daughter and myself and my wife, we were standing in the kitchen, like making plans about something. And I said about like, well, tomorrow, what if we, would you like to go out like for lunch in the middle of the day? Do you have a little time? We could go out for our anniversary. And my wife paused, and Arden goes, she didn't know tomorrow was your anniversary. And I said, yeah, I'm seeing that right now. And she's like, oh no, I can't. Like I have a meeting. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. So we've been married a long time. So
how long?
27 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Is it?
Yeah, totally. With 2 kids, totally.
I know, right? But anyway, the next day came and we did not go out to lunch. I gave my wife flowers, an arrangement I made myself. And
wow, impressive.
Thank you. She gave me nothing. And that was
that's how it goes usually, right?
That's my expectation, honestly. I don't even know what I would want, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
You know? Like
that's true.
Like if something happened, what would I want it to be? I have no idea. It's a long time. 27 years is insane.
It's really insane.
Yeah. So,
but it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited about it. I think she was too. I can't tell.
Yeah, totally. Did you meet in college or?
Kelly worked at a movie theater that a number of my friends worked at. And she was college aged. And I had known her for years before, just like as a person who worked at this theater, but I didn't know her. I was aware of her, I guess.
Yeah.
And she went on an island vacation with friends and came back very tan with her hair braided. And I became very focused on trying to have sex with her.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
If I'm being honest. So I pursued her for a while. And that is where I met her at, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think if she didn't get her hair braided even, I don't even know what would have happened.
Yeah, it was it the braids?
I mean, it could have ruined her life, that braiding that hair. If she wouldn't have done that, she could have stayed away from me and all these problems. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, you're so funny.
Well, I guess if we look back at it, getting her hair braided was her major life mistake.
Oh, I don't think it's a mistake.
Oh, you know
Definitely
what I mean.
not.
No, of course not. I'm being facetious. Okay, so wait a minute. So you have a 9-month-old
Yes.
and a 3-year-old, right?
Yes.
Okay, your 3-year-old has type 1. Is a girl or a boy?
He's a boy.
We're going to use his name or no?
Yeah, we can use it. His name is Liam.
Okay. All right. Liam. How old was Liam when he was diagnosed?
He was 14 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty young. Okay. Do you have any type 1 in your family?
I do. My sister's type 1 and my aunt is type 1. We have my family's full of autoimmune diseases. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It was definitely a shock him being so young, but, and I wasn't anticipating it, but yeah, we do.
How old are you? Can I ask?
I'm going to be 41 on Saturday.
Oh, okay. So, and happy birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of celebration going on.
Yeah, there's tons.
so you're 41. You had a baby 3 years ago when you were like 38, diabetes. Yeah. So did you recognize the diabetes symptoms in the baby?
So I am also a nurse. So I had just noticed for like a week prior that he was like drinking a lot more fluids. He was like soaking through diapers, and it was the end of April when he was diagnosed. And I was just kind of like, oh, it's kind of hot. It was kind of hot. We live in New Jersey. We lived kind of near the beach. So we were outside a lot of the park and kind of brushed it off. But then like 4 days before he was diagnosed, I like went to put him to sleep and he was breathing on me and I could smell like ketones. And I turned to my husband and I was like, I think I smell ketones on Liam's breath. And he's like, well, my husband, first of all, was like, I don't even know what that is. And I was like, something's not right with him, you know? And so I had reached out to our pediatrician a couple times with concerns about the fluid, like the extra fluids and all this stuff. And she kind of brushed it off. And then there was just one day that I just remember watching him in my living room chug like a huge bottle of water. And I was like, something isn't right. So I called my ped and I was like, I want to take him in. I think there's something going on. I think it might be suspicious of diabetes. And she's like, he's way too young. And I was like, okay. So I made my husband go to Walgreens and I was like, let's just dip his urine for ketones because I was like, something isn't right. So took his diaper off and waited till he peed. My husband like caught his pee in his hand and we dipped it and he had large ketones. So I called my doctor back and I was like, okay, so now has large ketones. Like I'm suspicious. She's like, oh, that's normal. And I was like, oh no, that's not normal. Like I knew enough. So I sent my husband back out to get a glucometer. And then I ended up just doing like a heel stick on him and he registered like over 500.
Wow.
So
look at you.
Yeah.
Did your doctor not know you were a nurse?
She knew I was a nurse and like I pretty much like reamed her out when I got to the hospital. I mean, I think she was taken back, but I think my heart like thinks now when I still think about it now, like what would have happened if I didn't have that knowledge, you know, and I didn't keep pushing my doctor to be like, there's something not right with my son, you know, and she just kept brushing it off. Like, I don't know. I think it's really sad. And I think there's so many young kids that get diagnosed and it's so traumatic because their symptoms are so easily misdiagnosed as like, oh, labored breathing. Oh, that's RSV, or you're vomiting. Oh, you have the stomach bug. But like these kids are in DKA. And I'm just so grateful that he wasn't in DKA when he was diagnosed.
No, of course. But you're specifically saying, hey, my kid has ketones. I think they have diabetes. He's drinking a lot of water. I think he has diabetes. Like, it's almost like you're describing the sun. And you're saying to her, hey, I'm going to describe the sun to you. And you go, it's round. And she goes, that's not it. And you're like, well, it's yellow. And she goes, no, that's not it either. It's very hot. No, it doesn't sound like the sun to me. That's just very strange. If you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready with Gvoke HypoPen. My daughter carries Gvoke HypoPen everywhere she goes because it's a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above that I trust. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. Luckily, Gvoke HypoPen can be administered in 2 simple steps, even by yourself in certain situations. Show those around you where you store Gvoke HypoPen and how to use it. They need to know how to use Gvoke HypoPen before an emergency situation happens. Learn more about why Gvoke HypoPen is in Arden's Diabetes Toolkit at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on the top of your kidneys called a pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called an insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information.
Yeah. It was really disappointing. And she was also like a really like well-known pediatrician. Like everybody like loves her. And so the frustration around his diagnosis was like, I'm just happy that he was okay and he wasn't in DKA and I was able to catch everything. But I just, Did you go with thoughtful anger, or did you just randomly yell at her when you saw her? I was not thoughtful at all.
I wouldn't have been either.
You know, like, what are you going to do? Like, I literally was like, I'm pretty sure my kid has diabetes. And she's like, no. Like, I mean, when I dipped his urine, he was like dark purple, like large ketones. And I was like, he has large ketones. She's like, that's normal. And I was like, lady, I'm only a nurse, but like, that is not normal for kids.
Did she know that you have relatives with type 1?
I told her my sister's a type 1. I'm very well versed. I said, I smell ketones on his breath. I can smell like the acetone on his breath.
Oh my God.
She just completely dismissed me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were in
So we found a new ped.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's the obvious end of that story. But you were in some sort of a power struggle with her ego.
Yeah, for like, it was like 4 days that I was going back and forth with her before I was like, you know what? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm doing this myself. And I just dipped his urine. I saw the ketones. I called her back. And then I was like, she was like, that's normal. Come in. It was like a Thursday. She's like, or a Friday. She's like, come in on Monday for blood work if you're still concerned over the weekend. No. And I was like, I was like, I can't sleep until I know what his blood sugar is now. Yeah. Like, we need to just go do a heel stick. And then it was like, I think he was 638 when he got to the ER. And I was just,
14 months old. He couldn't have weighed much, right?
No, he was like 20 something pounds. Yeah.
Do you think you caught it really early, or do you think it was going on for a bit?
His A1C was 9, so I don't think I caught it early. But he wasn't in DKA, so I don't really know. I know that a couple more days he would have been there just by like looking at it, like from my like looking at his labs now. I can kind of like figure out like he wasn't in DKA, but he was close.
Right. What other autoimmune stuff's in your family?
So my sister was actually on the show, like I want to say like 8 months ago.
Really?
She Michaela. She has my sister has epilepsy and she has type 1. She has lupus. My mom has sarcoidosis. I have Hashimoto's. My other sister has Hashimoto's. My aunt has Addison and type 1. So we have a lot.
Wow. By the way, I thought sarcoidosis was just the thing they'd used on House to get you to the real answer. Is that actually it's an actual thing. It's like a sarcoids that like get on your lungs and stuff like that. I actually don't know a lot about it. I probably should, but yeah. A rare condition that causes small patches of swollen tissue called granulomas to develop in the organs of the body. It often affects the lungs and lymph nodes and can affect your skin also.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch House? Anybody who watched the show House, it was about this diagnostic doctor who would figure out tough cases. At some point in almost every episode, someone would float sarcoidosis.
Really?
Yes. It was like, it became a joke, actually, at some point. They always would be like, this could be sarcoidosis. And it never was. Like, I just kept thinking, like, will it ever be that, actually? Anyway.
I've never really got into House.
Well, power watch it. You'll hear the word a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to it.
That's funny. Okay. So there's, and is this consistent with just the females on your side? Or are there men too with issues?
There's men. So I'm one of 7 kids. I'm the oldest, but there's 5 girls. My mom has more sisters and brothers. Maybe it is more consistent with the females. That's actually a really good point. I never really thought about that. Mm-hmm. There's just more girls. I think that's probably why.
Okay. Yeah, I see that with my wife's family, though.
Yeah.
It seems to be more specific with the females for some reason. Anyway. Okay. So, diagnosed in the hospital, and I'm always interested, did your nursing help or get in the way?
It got in the way. Nurses are the worst patients, and probably even worse as a mother. We did not have a good hospital experience either. We had like a nurse lose his blood when she did a blood draw on him. She like lost the blood vial. Like we had another nurse give him his first insulin injection with a cap on. And then she came back and she's like, oh, sorry, I actually didn't give him the shot. And now I'm really going to give it to him. Like it was really a nightmare. And I was like, what?
Wait, I don't understand. How could you?
I don't even know. It's a well-known hospital in New Jersey, very good pediatric ER. And she came in, she gave him his first shot of insulin and she walked away. And I looked at my husband and I was like, that is not what an insulin injection is supposed to look like. You could see like the whole cap that was indented on his leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes back in 5 minutes later and she's like, oh, I'm really sorry. I accidentally gave it with the cap on. Now I'm really going to give it to him. I was like, oh my God, just give it to me. I'll give it to him.
I got to be honest. That one that might have been enough for me right there, especially after the doctor experience. I don't know that I could have I might have been like, we're leaving. Can we go somewhere else? That's ridiculous.
I have to say, I was really traumatized by I think every parent is when you have a child that's diagnosed and, it's hard to process everything. But then when people start screwing up with your kid, it's like next level, what's going on?
Listen, see, you're being polite though, Kerrie. Screwing up is one thing. She took the needle with a cap on it and somehow believed that she gave it an injection.
Yeah. I mean, thank God she was honest and came back and actually gave it to him.
Well, what's she going to do? Yeah. She should have come back in and said hey, I was just kidding. That's what it looks like when you don't give it. I'm just trying to teach you what's happening. Well, that's fascinating.
It was bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take them to get his blood sugar down and get you out of the hospital?
So that's actually what I never understood about his hospital stay is that they never got his blood sugar down. He was also we were bolusing after he ate while we were in the hospital. But they were just concerned about his ketones being cleared. And then they were ready to send us home. And I was like, I'm not ready to go home because his blood sugar is still 400. This is kind of ridiculous. But they thought that was fine and sent us home. And so we were in the hospital for 2 nights, 3 days.
Was this during COVID?
Yeah, it was during not the first COVID wave, but COVID was going on. It wasn't bad. I mean, we were obviously wearing masks in the hospital. We were in single room, but I was kind of disappointed. I actually went to the doctor and I was like, I'm not comfortable bringing my son home yet because his blood sugar is still 400. We haven't gotten a grip on it yet, But they were like, it's just going to be trial and error. And I was like, okay, that's whatever.
I was just wondering.
So they sent us home.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they were trying to move people out quickly because of COVID, but it also doesn't sound like that.
No.
Maybe just because he was never in DKA.
They weren't as concerned. They just wanted to make sure his ketones were cleared, which they were by the next morning after a couple, after he was hydrated and he had a couple boluses in him, his ketones were cleared. And then they were like, okay, we're going to do a day of training and you guys are going to go home in the morning. My husband and I were like, what?
You might have got the medical professional bum rush. She knows.
I think it was.
Yeah. That happens a lot, actually.
It's a shame because I was so overwhelmed because anybody that is a nurse, they don't teach you any of this stuff in nursing school.
Sure.
I knew nothing. I learned nothing about diabetes in nursing school. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So he leaves on injections. Do you have anything different than what you left with now? What do you do now?
So my son is still MDI. We're in the process of pursuing a pump now. Up until now, he was still pulling off his Dexcom and stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't the right timing for me to throw another device on him and deal with him pulling off 2 things.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of getting a pump now. So we are just trying to figure out which pump is getting more appropriate for him.
Okay. But you've been doing MDI for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you had a Dexcom for?
I demanded Dexcom in the hospital.
Okay.
We got one the next day.
How did you know about that?
My sister.
Right. Okay.
She was like, don't leave the hospital until you have a Dexcom. And I was like, you got it. And
nice.
I was like, I need a Dexcom or I'm not leaving. And they're like, here, get out.
Did it scare you about having another baby?
Very much so.
Okay. But you did it. So
yeah.
What was the conversation like between you and your husband?
I didn't want my son. I didn't want Liam growing up without having a sibling. And I didn't want the fear of another child with diabetes to get in the way of having a family, I guess we just both kind of looked at it if we're going to have another diabetic baby, we're going to be the best parents for him or her or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I worry about my second getting diabetes all the time, but I mean, I can't change it. Yeah. So
Are you having that unreasonable thought that it's just 5 months away from happening?
Yeah. It's funny. I smell his breath all the time because I get so worried, or I'm like, oh my God, he soaked through 2 diapers last night. Or his diaper was so full this morning. Those are always my first thoughts. Oh, he really likes water. All of those things always go into my mind. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want the fear of diabetes to get in the way of me having a family.
Good for you. That's excellent. Okay. So you came home with a CGM. And I mean, was he was still around 20 pounds. He didn't lose a lot of weight off of his weight during the.
He lost a pound.
Okay.
That was the only, yeah. So nothing really.
And so I'm just really interested in hearing about what your experience was like absorbing diabetes and figuring it out with such a small person.
Yeah, it was hard. I was also breastfeeding, and the endo that we were seeing in the hospital was like, you need to stop breastfeeding, like very much like you need to stop. And I was like, if I will not take away the one thing right now that is going to keep him like content and happy. And I just refused to stop breastfeeding. So that was very difficult to manage, the breastfeeding with the bolusing, with the overnight. It was really hard. That was the hardest time in my life, is when he was diagnosed, and I just had a really hard time. We had a hard time with the Dexcom changes, and he was getting reactions to the Dexcoms. And yeah, it's really hard when they're that little.
Yeah, no kidding.
Really hard.
No, it's it's
so
much about the dosing the insulin is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Just really, it's hard to put into words when a half a unit is like a massive amount of insulin.
Totally.
And you can't even reason with them. 14 months old. Like, what do? You look at him and go, Liam, listen, I need you to eat this, man, or there's going to be problems. Like, you can't have those. And breastfeeding, you don't even know what they're taking in, really.
Yeah. Breastfeeding was really difficult. Yeah. So it was hard. I think I went through like my own like emotional like space in my life where I just was like, I don't want to say angry, but I was kind of angry. Like, why does this happen to my kid? And why am I, like having to go through this? And my son is having to go through this so young. And it was hard.
Yeah. No, I imagine.
Really hard.
Did you go to a therapist by any chance?
I did see a therapist right after he was diagnosed for a while. But then it just kind of became like, I don't want to say like my life, but I just have on better terms with it now. I think my biggest thing for me was like, I always hated when people would be like, well, things can be so much worse. He could have cancer. And I'm like, you're like totally dismissing what I go through on a daily basis, I
don't understand the idea of like comparison. It's actually interesting. I just put it on my list to talk to Erica about, because I'm trying to figure out what the human need is to compare everything.
Yeah. What is that? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Well, he does have diabetes and like he does get shots, but like think of it, like he could be getting chemo right now. And I was like, what you're doing right now is like totally dismissing what my son goes through and what we go through on a daily basis in my house. So like, just stop, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is people comparing, like it could be worse. And I'm like, but it could be better. So
yeah. What if it didn't exist? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Like what if there was a cure? It would be a lot better. So yeah.
I'm always confused by, I guess to me, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So if a person over here has cancer and your kid has type 1 diabetes and, another person lives in a house and another person is homeless and they all have bad things happening to them. Like,
yeah,
the guy in the house isn't maybe as bad off as the homeless person. It doesn't make the guy in the house's situation different to him. And
right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I hate the you're a good parent for this.
Yeah.
That one I'm not a fan of that at all. It could be worse is terrible. But that one that was said to me that God gave Arden diabetes because he knew I could handle it.
I've heard that one too.
I did not find that comforting, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah. Like what? Like, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I responded. I said, so if I was a big screw up, then Arden wouldn't have diabetes.
What did they say?
No. Well, we started making sense and the conversation went away pretty quickly. But also in fairness, I know what they meant, and it was meant to be comforting. And I even, if I can understand the context that they meant it in, like, you can handle this, but just say, Scott, I've known you for a while and I think you can handle this and you'll be okay. That would
totally
have been fine. Yeah. Don't tell me that my kid got diabetes because God was like, oh, that guy can take care of diabetes. Because also, by the way, I've met a lot of people whose kids have diabetes who can't take care of it. So
yeah, same.
Yeah. Did God get bored that day and just give it to that person? Like, try to make more sense.
You look good.
Let's just give it to her. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I totally agree with you on that.
But okay. So how long did you breastfeed, I guess, after the diagnosis?
Oh, like a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't ready to wean and I was just like, and then I wanted to get pregnant again, have another baby because I was getting really old. So I was like, we gotta cut it. But yeah, I think I probably did it longer for him because I felt like I just didn't want to take anything away from him, you know? So
were you, I was going to say at least, but were you pumping and then putting it in a bottle so you could see how much it was, or were you actually breastfeeding?
Both. In the beginning, I was trying to pump to see how much, but it became really difficult in the overnights because I just never knew how much he was taking in. And then I tried to get my breast milk analyzed. Someone mentioned like trying to get your breast milk analyzed, and it was like all carbs. And I was like, okay, but I mean, breast milk is mostly carbs anyway. Depends on the time of day, but yeah. And then we ended up just bringing up our basal dose much higher to kind of cover the overnight feeds, and it just got messy. And then it was time.
It's a balancing act. I mean, it will get, as he puts on body weight. I'm sure you're seeing this, right? It's getting easier.
Our growth spurts in my house are like brutal.
Okay.
With him. They're so hard. That's been the hardest part for us this past like 6 months is like dealing with growth with him and being MDI.
I was going to say, is this part of the reason you're thinking about a pump now?
Yeah. Our overnights are really rough with just like growth hormones and stuff. And I think it's time that we just get on a pump just so our nights are better.
Do you think you'll try an algorithm, or do you think you'll just go for like a manual pump?
I'm pretty sure I'm really leaning towards a T-Slim. My sister has a T-Slim. I'm very familiar with it. It really comes down to, is he going to keep it on? But he's going to school in September. He's starting pre-K. So like, I'm hoping that we can fit it in over winter break, like do like the whole pump and get used to it before he goes back to school. So that's my hope.
You think he'll be okay with the tethered part?
We talked to him a lot about it. We're going to try and do like a trial where we keep like the tethered part on him and see how he does. The problem is that he's a really smart kid. And like, I just worry about him. Like, I know there's like tons of safety features to the pumps, but I just worry about him like doing something. And I don't know.
I don't know. This is a difficult decision, honestly.
Yeah. Huge for us.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Well, you said that you're talking to him about it a lot. What do you think his like grasp of his diabetes is?
It's interesting. So I was at the park with him the other day, and we use an iPort. So he has an iPort on one arm right now, and he has his Dexcom on the other. And this little girl, sometimes I'm a helicopter mom with him because I don't want kids to, make him feel different about his devices or anything. And I was at the park and I was holding my other son, and I was watching this little girl staring at his Dexcom. And I was like, this girl's going to come up and say something to him. And I was like, I have to just watch, before I like hop into this. And she like walks up to Liam and she's like, what's on your arm? And he goes, oh, that's my Dexcom. It checks my blood sugar. And she's like, oh, okay. Do you like McDonald's? And he's like, yeah. She's like, me too. And then they just walked away. And it was like, I could just breathe for a minute because I was like, oh, because he understands, but it was just that. And that was it.
Plus you're at the Jersey Shore. You didn't know what kind of attitude she was going to have.
Exactly.
Yeah. She could have been
you never know what you're going to get there.
Yeah. What are you wearing on your arm there?
Yeah, exactly. But it was fine. So I think he gets it. He's like, he knows blood sugar and like all of that. He's a smart kid. Okay. So yeah.
So he knows I need insulin. This is why.
Yep.
I actually had a conversation with Arden the other day about her thyroid medication. And I was like, oh, I don't think she completely understands what this is.
Oh, really?
I made a little note for myself, like, let's have a 15-minute conversation about thyroid review. Cause she's 19, right? So she was out with her friends like all night the other night. She's home from school on a break. And she literally came home in the morning. And I just said to her, hey, before you go to sleep, take your Tirosint and your T3. And she goes, oh,
I take Tirosint. You never hear about anybody taking Tirosint.
Mm-hmm. It's cleaner. That's why we use it.
So much cleaner.
Yeah. So,
sorry, keep going.
Don't worry. So she takes Tirosint, she takes Cytomel. Is it Cytomel? I think so. Okay. Okay, we'll talk about that. Hold on. So I said, take that before you go to sleep. And she goes, I'm going to take it when I wake up. And I was like, no. And she goes, yeah, it's for energy. And I went, oh God, what did you just say? And I went, hey, it's not just, we'll talk about this later. I was like, just take that. And she goes, okay. And she went in her room. I was like, oh my God.
But it does kind of give you energy.
I mean,
so she
I know
is
it does.
right.
I know where she's coming from. Like, she's like, that's the stuff that peps me up. I don't want to do that before I sleep. I'm like, that's not how that works exactly.
Okay, we'll talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm like, you need to keep it 24 hours apart. Like, you're trying to, and I looked at her and I was like, we'll just talk about this later. But how long have you been taking Tirosint?
Oh God, like 6-7 years. I started on Synthroid. I hated it. And then I saw an endo who was like, I think you do much better on Tirosint. And I was like sold, and I like read the ingredients and just made more sense to me to take it. And it's kept my thyroid like perfect ever since I've been taking it. I've never had any issues with my thyroid since I started taking it. Synthroid, I was like all over the place. And then even like through my pregnancies, I just think that Tirosint is the best thyroid med out there.
So what were your symptoms? What led you to it?
To Hashimoto's?
Yeah. How'd you know?
I was just really tired, and like I had no idea. And I went to the doctor, and I was like, I'm just feeling like really tired all the time. Like I didn't have kids at the time. So she was like, okay, we'll just do like a blood draw. And my TSH was like 10.
Oh,
it's like, oh, okay. Like really high. And then they checked for the antibodies, and I was positive for those. So yeah.
Okay. Now, how long did you do that before they added T3?
They actually just added T3 for me this year.
What led to that?
I don't even know. I don't like, it's so funny. My focus is so much on my kids and like their endo that like, she's like, do you want to try a T3? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Throw it in. And I try it. And I was like, I feel great. I don't sleep anyway. So it's fine.
Should we put carrots in this stew? I don't see why not. Just do it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, so for Arden, her the Tirosint is the T4 replacement, right? And her numbers can be terrific, but she's still tired.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you don't give her the T3, she's exhausted.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I don't just mean like tired. I mean like dripping in a puddle tired. Like I've told this story before, but I'll tell you, in Arden's yearbook for her senior year in high school, like, when people like take out like ads, you're basically paying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we did one of those. So there's this beautiful picture of Arden in the middle. And then around it, if you can imagine 9 small photographs around one in the middle, they are all like cell phone pictures of Arden asleep on different hard surfaces in our house.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, like passed out.
Oh, wow, so she needs it.
Yeah, like passed out, like come home from school, sit down at an island, and just face down on a piece of stone asleep.
Wow, that's crazy.
Curled up on the floor, like in just like random places. Like she'd get on the floor to play with the dog, and you'd look over and she'd be asleep. And
wow,
yeah, it was insane. And you add,
so she needs it.
Oh my God, she does not function without it. It's really interesting. As a matter of fact, at the end of her last school year, I think that's when it was. She ran out of it a few days before the end of the year, and it took about 7 days for her to get home and to get new, and it decimated her. She was back to like not being able to function.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really something.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, at least she has it. She knows.
Oh my God, it's so much better. If this is 50 years ago, we would have had to like put her to sleep like a dog or something. Like, I'm seriously, I don't know what to do with her. Like she barely could even now that she's on all these things, she still says sleeping for me is not refreshing.
Really?
Yeah, she's like, I never.
Is she reaching her a deep sleep? Is she getting into that like?
Kerrie, she sleeps forever. if you
really?
If you don't wake her up, she'll stay asleep forever.
Wow,
yeah.
I miss those days.
Do you? Like a nice 12 hours? Like when she got home from the overnight thing, she's like, I'll be up in 5 hours. So I was like, I don't imagine that's going to be true, but okay. But anyway, so are you watching that with your kids too? Do you add that to their blood work? Good.
Yeah, we do the annual blood work for his thyroid. It's been fine so far, knock on wood. So yeah.
Good for you. Did your husband, after all this started happening, did he say, "Hey, this should have been disclosed before I married you"?
Yeah, I mean, he was just kind of like, "Go figure." Like our kid gets like the worst, genes. Like, I don't know. My husband is like the specimen of health. His whole family lives to like 100, right? And like. Great teeth, like everything is like perfect. It's so annoying. And then like my family has got like all these autoimmune diseases, and like people are dying younger, and like I don't know, whatever.
Great teeth is hilarious.
Great, yeah. My husband has great teeth. Like he has great teeth. I don't know. For some reason, people in my family, we just don't have great teeth. So
that's something. What, people in your family die younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think my grandparents died when they were like in their 60s.
Well, that's about right still, though. You're almost my age. Like this, I
guess you're right.
Yeah, you and I are like the first go round of people who did not grow up like in a salt mine, basically. So
that's true.
Yeah, I think this is where you're going to see a leap. Those of us who grew up a little easier, although half of us are going to probably just go the wrong way with nutrition and it'll be a different thing that kills people. But
totally.
But I think
I
for
agree
now,
with you on that.
if you have a less impactful job and you're actually taking reasonable care of yourself, like I'm interested to see how long people can go. Even the things, diagnostically.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like I have like low iron, but because of diagnostics and decent like healthcare, I'm ahead of that. Otherwise, I'd live my whole life making cells over and over again with not enough iron in my system, and I probably would die sooner.
Didn't you get an iron transfusion? I thought I saw a picture of you on.
I've had a couple.
Juicebox.
Yeah. I've had a couple. So I haven't had them in a while, and I have my fingers crossed that they won't happen again with supplementing. But I don't know. Like it could. You know?
Totally.
So, but still, it's within reason. I get a little sleepy. I call a doctor. They draw some blood. They go, "Hey, it's low." I wait a couple days. I go to the thing. They jack you back up, and you're on your way again. So
yeah, I've had a couple too. I always feel amazing afterwards.
Yeah, it is great. It actually
right.
is.
Like I feel better. I don't know.
I can't say enough if you're iron. I did a whole series of conversations about it because I wanted people to know. But even what the testing parameters are, it might not be enough. Like, I had an endo on that said if you're a woman of menstruating age, for example, that she sees 70 as the absolute bottom of where your ferritin should be. I
agree with that, though.
Yeah, and that's not.
It's also
case.
Like D3 too. The vitamin D. They always say like you always want it up on the high upper end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D every day.
That's so crazy, but that's so good for you.
Yeah. So
Liam's was like critical low when he was diagnosed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I mean, I think there's space for good supplementation, and
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, definitely helpful. And I actually drink Athletic Greens on top of all that too, which I don't think I'm supposed to call Athletic Greens anymore. AG1. I don't know.
Oh, did it change?
My link went from athleticgreens.com Juicebox to drinkag1.com/juicebox. So I'm assuming
like that stuff. I think I'm going to get it for my husband.
So this is not an ad, but they are advertisers. It's the only green drink I ever tried that I could drink.
Stomach.
Yeah, and it's not just that I can stomach it. I drink it and I go, that was great, and it's over. And like,
really?
Oh my god, the other stuff I couldn't get through my mouth. I was like,
some of it's really gross,
and it would get in your stomach and be like, sit there, real weird, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not good. But yeah, AG1, I'm very happy with. So it's a matter of fact, I got to keep selling it because I get it for free as long as you guys keep buying it.
Oh, that's good to know. All right, maybe I'll buy some for my husband.
No. If that stops, then I'm on the hook because I think I got to keep drinking it. I need you guys to pay. Anyway, it's worth it. I do think it's worth a try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks good.
No, let me just say drinkag1.com/juicebox. You get a free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs, Kerrie. If you use my link. Sorry, I feel like an idiot. Anyway. Algorithm, you think yes. You'd like to go T-Slim Control IQ?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How much insulin is he getting in a day?
Oh, he needs what he needs. So he gets like 8. His basals right now is 8. He's about 50-50, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gets usually about 8 of Humalog he's on 8 of Tresiba right now.
Okay. Yeah. That's how much does he weigh now at 3?
He's 3.5, but he's 40 pounds. He's like 95th percentile for weight, 95th for height. He's a solid kid. Is
your husband big?
No. It's so funny. I went to the pediatrician the other day and he's like, he's like 90th for weight and 95th for height. He's like, at least he's proportioned. And I was like, you're right. At least he is. He's like, at least he's not overweight. And I was like, dude, he's 3. Okay. Don't even go there with the weight with me.
I heard you apologizing for him and you went, hey, listen, he is 3.5. So
yeah, he's 3.5. Like he'll be 4 this winter. Yeah, he's a solid kid.
Your husband's not a big tall guy. Are you tall?
I'm like 5'6". My husband's 6 foot. We're not like crazy. Yeah. So I don't know.
Interesting. It doesn't always work out. I mean, for instance, my children are attractive and athletic. So I don't know where the hell that came from either. I used to tell people all the time that my mailman must be a very good looking athletic guy.
Oh, you're so funny.
This is my assumption because I mean, there have been times I've watched my kids do things athletically, and I'm just like, I'm probably not their father. It's like, I don't know how this could be. But anyway, as Cole gets older, he's starting to look more like me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is interesting.
Wait, I can't remember. I've listened to one episode recently. He's in college or high school? I can't remember.
No, he graduated from college. He's got his first.
Oh, he's done with college?
Yeah, he's at his first job now.
I don't know why I thought he was younger.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's because the podcast can jump around sometimes.
Yeah,
but
probably.
No, he's been living on his own for 8 months now, very far from home. And he likes the job and he's getting good experience from it. But he's like, I need to leave here because I'm so by myself. He's like,
yeah,
there's just nobody here. And his girlfriend's somewhere else. And, they're trying to figure all that out. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. But
he needed the experience and it was a very good job with a great company. And he's like, this is how I'm going to move up. I got to get this so I can go to the next thing. And
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So he's doing
I get that.
I'm proud of him. He really is on his own. So
yeah, you should be. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. I would be like mental. Like,
oh, same here.
Yeah. He said the saddest thing to me the other day. He goes, what do people do after work? And I'm like, uh-oh. He's out of TV to watch. And he's like, I play basketball in the park and like I go shopping, and he's like talking about the things he has to do. And he's like, yeah, I keep my place clean and stuff. He's like, but what else do people do? And I was like, oh, buddy. I was like, this is life. I don't know what to say. This is it. I'm sorry.
There's really nothing, no other secrets.
Yeah. It was like, I said, when I was your age, I had a kid. So like, or getting ready to have one. I was moving towards that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, you got to find a hobby or, something. He's like, I might start going to a boxing gym to work out. I was like, that's a great idea. Like, try that. But it's just a very strange moment where at 23, he was like, oh, this isn't all like just Ferris wheels and this thing.
So what else do I do?
Yeah.
That's funny.
What else is there? And I was like, uh-oh.
Nothing.
Yeah. No, there's nothing else.
Welcome to adulthood. There's nothing else. There's no secrets.
Save some money so you can die.
Sleep when you can. So funny.
Oh my gosh. Can you explain how blood sugars reacted? So you're in a unique situation. You're watching an infant who's breastfeeding and going onto solid foods on a CGM. Like, what kind of shifts did you see in blood sugars?
Crazy shifts. I mean, I had to rehaul everything I was feeding him at that point because I don't know what it was about him when he was diagnosed. No honeymoon right off the bat. He needed a lot of insulin. He needed a lot of basal. Like, he just had high needs for insulin. And I was really scared about that because I was like, this just seems not right for, a 14-month-old to be taking this much insulin. He just was resistant for a while. And then we just kind of got into a groove when I started listening to the Juicebox, and I started kind of like riding the wave of the Dexcom all day long and kind of watching how he reacts to certain foods and kind of, finding alternatives to some of the foods that he likes because I didn't want him on a roller coaster all day long. Yeah. So that took a really long time for me to figure all that out. Like a really long time. Actually, I think you actually talked to my husband right after Liam was diagnosed. I posted on the Juicebox, like, I'm losing my mind. I am not sleeping. I don't know why my son is running so high. And I was like pleading for someone to help me. And you responded like, let's talk. And so I had you like talk to my husband, and you right off the bat were like, he needs more basal. And you were right, because we ended up like going up a lot in his basal shortly after that. So
Did he and I talk by phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
I think because you saw that we were like in New Jersey and you were like, like, let's talk about this. Cause I think I posted a lot in the Juicebox, like right when he was first diagnosed, because I was really overwhelmed and I was just feeling so defeated by seeing these numbers all the time and not trying to like figure out what I was missing,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you talked to my husband right after Liam was diagnosed.
Oh, I'm such a good guy. No kidding.
You are.
Yeah.
You are.
I just looked to your sister's episode was 9/11.
Yes.
It's called T1D Lupus and Epilepsy.
Yep.
Okay. She turned you on to the podcast or vice versa?
No, I turned her onto it. When we were in the hospital, we actually started listening to like the beginnings. And then shortly after, like, I contacted Jenny to start making appointments with her.
Okay.
So I was like, I need help.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, so Jenny helped you with the baby.
Oh, Jenny, I've been working with Jenny since he was diagnosed. We're still working with her.
Oh, that's lovely. Good. I'm glad. But still, you're still like on the group going, I don't know what's wrong.
In the beginning, we had some issues with our endo. I had to leave the endo that we had seen at the hospital because I hated them. I thought they were not helpful at all. And then I was like, my husband and I lived in Boston for several years prior to having kids. And I was like, well, then I'm moving to Boston and I'm bringing Liam to Jocelyn. Like, so like it was a no brainer. And my husband was like, Kerrie, you're losing it. And I was like, okay, maybe I am. So we did like virtual with Jocelyn because I like knew somebody that worked there from working there and whatever. So we worked with Jocelyn for like a while until we switched to our endocrinologist that we had now. But our endos prior to our endo now, none of them were helpful. I just like, everybody was just like, correct. And felt like I was chasing highs and, treating lows. I just never got into a groove with him for a really long time.
Yeah. So they set his settings up. And then even as his settings were too weak, they would just tell you just to correct the high blood sugar.
Yeah. They were questioning me a lot. They were like, why are you doing that? It's just, yeah, it was hard. We just never got into a groove with an endo for a while.
Why were you doing what?
Like, like your carb count was wrong. Like I had to do the logs afterwards. And, it was just hard. Like, I don't know how many carbs are in my breast milk. I was estimating and they would get on my case that I was estimating wrong or I wasn't bolusing enough. And it was kind of a nightmare. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's affecting my mental health. I need a new endo that's not going to question me. It's going to support me.
Yeah.
And then we went to CHOP and it's been like an amazing experience. So yeah.
By the way, if anyone needs an indication of how upset you were like, we'll relocate to where there's a better hospital.
Yeah. I was like, we're just going to move to Boston. My husband was like, Kerrie, I think you're losing it. And I was like, okay, well, then I'm going to leave and I'm going to bring Liam to Boston and we'll go see a new endo there. And he's like, we have CHOP here. Like, why can't we just see someone around here? And I was like, okay.
You're like, you're going to live here. We're going to live in Boston. So, it is a lot. It's just a lot of stress and it's nonstop. I mean, honestly, it's 24 hours a day nonstop and the baby's small and it's got to always be in your head. Like if he gets too low and I can't talk him into eating something or whatever, like we're going to have a real problem. And,
I still have those thoughts now with him.
Sure. Oh, please. I think you're going to have him for a while. Don't worry.
I think the toddler stage is even harder because he's like, he takes swim lessons and like we went to swim and after swim lessons, he gets to go to McDonald's and it's like my thing. And I have no mom guilt about it because he enjoys it and that's it. So I have mastered a Happy Meal for him. And we went to McDonald's and we sit down, I pre-bowls him. We're sitting there waiting for the food and the burger comes and he looks at me and goes, I don't want this. And I was like, why? And he's like, I just don't want it. Let's leave. And I was like, oh, it's like it's just, it's hard with toddlers.
No, I
was like, why? You told me you want a Happy Meal. He's like, I don't want it now. And I was like, okay.
What'd you do?
I had cookies in my purse. I just gave him the cookies and I was like, let's get out of here.
Oh my God.
Of course he wanted it an hour later, but whatever.
Did you go back?
No, I had it still. I brought it home.
Oh, you heated up his Happy Meal.
Yeah.
Can we call this episode Reheated Happy Meal? Maybe.
Perfect. Love it.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's not a thing that a lot of people are going to understand. I mean, you can imagine it, but I lived through it and it's frightening. And I was on edge for years. Like you really have to imagine that Arden was diagnosed in 2006. Wait a minute, 6. And she was 2 years old and she weighed like 18 pounds when she was diagnosed. And there was no CGMs. They gave you like syringes and Novolog and a basal insulin that was so ineffectual nobody uses it anymore, basically. And and you were just on your way. And it was up and down and up and down. And you couldn't even tell. You were just testing, trying to like get ahead of the problem and always worried. Like I haven't talked about it in a while, but I mean, for a full year, I'd live a whole day with Arden, like at home with her. My wife would come home from work and I'd be like, I have to get a shower because I didn't get a chance to get a shower today. I went in the shower to cry.
It's really, I totally feel you on that. It's really hard. It's also really hard finding other parents or friends that you can like relate to. Like for me, at least, sometimes I would find I would talk to other moms and they would be like, oh, my night was so hard. Like my baby woke me up twice. And I'm like, are you serious? Like I treated a high for 4 hours last night. I maybe slept 2 hours, it's hard finding, people that you can, I don't know, relate to sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Commiserating is helpful. And that's actually what that person's trying to do with you, except they don't understand the level you're at versus the one they're at. And again, not to compare it. I'm sure it's terrible for her too. But it's not helpful for you as far as finding an actual sounding board who understands your situation. So,
it's really, I think it's It's just harder when they're younger. I know you can relate to that. I always just felt like for a really long time, or I still do, like I just wait for the next ball to drop, like what's going to happen. Just kind of live your life always like on edge.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, I think the best you can do is get good settings, understand how insulin works, and, give yourself a chance to be in the fight, really. And, instead of being blind. I was blind the whole time for those first number of years. I literally didn't know what I was doing. It was a mess. And,
how did you like figure it all out?
I think writing the blog was partly helpful.
Yeah, I get that.
Because you could kind of like relive what was going on later when you weren't as upset about it. And then I started asking people questions. So one of the things that got me there was I asked Arden's nurse practitioner one time. I said, if I gave you a magic wand and I said you could make people with diabetes know one thing, like what would you make them know? And she said, I'd tell them how insulin works. That was it. And I said, okay, so I don't know how insulin works. That's a problem. So I'll figure out what that means. And then I just started quantifying it. Like I put it in here, I see a spike, the spike crashes, I just started trying to make sense of it. And then, I mean, CGMs came. Yeah. That was a huge part of it. The first Dexcom kind of wasn't so much about the number. It was almost about the graph and the arrows.
Totally agree.
Right. So you could kind of see like, okay, like it's going up now. Like I got that. Like, why is there not enough resistance here? I put the insulin in at a good number. Like, why is the number going up? And why is it staying up? And how come, I mean, I put in the right amount of insulin, but her blood sugar is really high and it's not moving. And they would tell you then like, well, don't put more insulin and you'll be stacking. But after you watch it happen a number of times, you think, well, that wouldn't be stacking because her blood sugar is never going to come back down again. And then you kind of reverse engineer it. You go, well, if I would have put more insulin up front, would it even gone up? And and then that started making sense. Then I started making leaps. The next leap I made was I was afraid of insulin. Yeah. I know I was afraid of it. And so one year I used to write for Omnipod's blog, which I don't know that it exists now or not. But I would write 6 pieces for them a year. They came to me at the end of the year and they're like, what do you want to write about next year? And I said, I'm going to write about not being afraid of insulin. It's going to be a 6-part series about not being afraid of insulin. And they were like, okay. And I told them why. And that was it. Like, I talked myself into not being afraid of insulin. Like, it's not like I knew something. I wrote about it in a way that talked myself out of it. Yeah. That was it, really. So I did misspeak earlier. The magic wand story, she said I would tell people not to be afraid of insulin, so they knew how it worked. There was a little more to it than that.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I just was like, okay, well, I am afraid of it. There's nothing that's going to make me not afraid of it, except maybe understanding how it works. So I'll start paying attention to how it works. And then that leap of trusting that I knew what was going to happen was going to happen.
Interesting.
That was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
How many times can you not pre-bolus a meal, watch it go to 300, have to put in 2 more units to bring it back down before you say to yourself, let me see what happens when I pre-bolus. Yeah. And then you pre-bolus and it goes to 200, but it doesn't come back down. How many times do you have to do that before you think, okay, well, I pre-bolus, that helped. But obviously there's not enough insulin here. So I don't care what the carb count says. This meal needed 2 more units of insulin. Yeah. So I'm going to use it. Like, why would I just do it again tomorrow when I know it's going to happen again? So then I was like, all right, the carb count says 3, but I'm going to use 5. And then it worked. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to trust that that's going to work. And it's almost the same kind of leap you have to make the first time you realize that, if you had 3 blood sugar meters and you took the same blood drop on all 3, you'd get 3 different numbers. Yeah. And then you have to say to yourself, I have to just go with what I have. And I think those little leaps got me there. And then I started seeing it. Like, then it slowed down. Like, it's such an old reference now. I don't even know if it works for people, but diabetes, like, it started feeling like the Matrix. And I felt like I was standing in the middle of the bullets and they weren't moving very fast. I was like, oh, I see it all happening now. And once I saw
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's how it felt. It felt like before everything was happening way too fast and I couldn't make sense of it. And I had found a way to slow everything down so I could kind of almost look up and like reach and grab a bullet and go, I'm just going to move this one over here so it doesn't hit me. Yeah. And then, I don't know, from there, I wrote about it more and, kind of clarified my thoughts and then kept experimenting and then kept getting good feedback. It was working. And then one day I just told my wife, I was like, I have a system. It works. Like, I don't have a name for it. I don't quantify it. Like, I'm not going to write a book about it, but I know if I do these things, it'll work. And then I made a podcast about it. So
cool.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
Really cool.
I had a lot of free time. I was a stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
So,
So cool.
just do the laundry, mop the floor, go grocery shopping. That's pretty much it. Just do it again the next day.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm a really emotional person, and like her health being poor was like killing me.
Same.
Yeah. So I couldn't let her be like that. And I couldn't be the one who did it. I was fighting against all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I feel that so much.
And it just feels easy now because now I'm like the guy who gets on the phone. I'm like, turn your basal up. You're like, he knows everything. I'm like, not really. But I have enough knowledge that I can look at it and with reasonable certainty know that this is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So, and then the doctors, I don't know if they don't have it. I tend to think of doctors' biggest issue is really the same issue that all businesses have, which is that people come and go, right? Like, so,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you bring somebody in, about the time they know what they're doing, they go somewhere else because they can sell themselves for more because now they have more responsibility. The next person that comes in doesn't know crap because they're just starting. And, so everybody's always either dealing with somebody who really knows what they're doing or has no idea what they're doing. And you can't build consistency. It's how free agency killed football.
Yeah. Totally.
Not that players shouldn't be free to move around. I support that. But it's hard to build a core and keep it together now because people jump around. And I think that happens in business. And I think that doctors' offices are businesses. And
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, when you get the girl with the needle cap, she's probably in her first 6 months of this.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and those people are always cycling in and out. I think that's the bigger problem. Actually, every problem we have in the world is a failing of people on some level. Like, it's just,
you're right.
Yeah. It's your job. It's not your life. And so if I have a bad day or I don't get a lot of sleep last night or God knows, like maybe the receptionist has got a little coke problem. Like, who knows? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody's got their own lives and they go to this thing during the day and they put as much effort into it as they think they need to keep their job. And then, it's not really, how many people do you know who have a job they really care about?
Not many.
Right. So, and then you show up with your kid or I show up with my kid or whatever. And I'm expecting these people to be perfect and, beyond reproach. And the truth is that they live up the street from me and they really are just dreaming of getting home and having 3 beers and watching American Idol. And that's it. So
true.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not a big deal. It just is what it is. If you know it, then you can work around it.
Totally.
That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I just don't have any big high expectations for people.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm. I think teachers are people who wanted to have off during the summer.
Same. It's true.
Not that teaching's not a big thing, but I bet you that it attracts a lot of people who are like, wow, 3 months off? Cool. Like,
I want to be my kid's school nurse eventually because I'm like, I get the summers off with him.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. And by the way, I'm sure there are plenty of people who really want to shape young minds and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure that's all true. But if 50% of the people are just like, I just got to make it to August, and the other 50% are working really hard, well, then you get a mixed bag. And,
totally.
It's just what it is. I don't know. Yeah. I was sitting here yesterday looking out the window while 4 people who work for my township were picking up 3 branches with a machine big enough to knock a house over. And I was like,
just walk over and pick it up.
Oh, they could have driven over with a pickup truck and grabbed it in 8 seconds. But instead, it's like we just used 72 gallons of diesel fuel using a machine that I could be part of a war if it needed to be. It was so big. And I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
and,
crazy.
So I don't know how I got to that, but that's my point is that you need to, on your own, figure out what this is and then advocate for yourself and see your doctors as people who, if you're lucky, you get a great one. And that's great. You take their information. And if you get a bad one, then then they're the nice people with the prescription pad and you go do what you got to do and and get what you need. And then you go home and make your own decisions. I'm watching someone online now. This is such a common thing with people with diabetes. She's looking at a chart or a graph. She puts it up online. She says, what's going on here? I said, this graph screams not enough basal to me. And she said, I said that to the doctor, but they told me no. And I'm like, okay. Well,
and
yeah. What now? Because you still have the problem. They said that's not it. You say that's it. I say that's it. 30 other people are looking at it and tell you the other thing. What are you going to do? Like,
Yeah.
So it's up to you at some point. That's all. Forget diabetes. If you're waiting for somebody else to tell you the right thing to do, you're making a mistake. So
yeah, totally.
You got to get in there. That's all. What are we not talking about, Kerrie, that we should have?
I don't know. I think that's it. I don't know. I just, I was just really excited to be able to get the chance to talk to you.
Cool.
I mean, this podcast has like changed my life.
Oh.
In so many ways.
Would you take a minute to tell me how?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's been an amazing support system for me, just having other people to like bounce things off of. But I mean, I learned so much from this podcast. Like, it has completely changed my way of managing Liam. I mean, because obviously when he was diagnosed, I was listening to the doctors and it just got me nowhere. And, when I found this podcast, I was like, I'm doing everything on my own. I mean, not like on my own, but I mean, I'm making the decisions. And I mean, it's just been a lifesaver for me and my husband. We both, I mean.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's very nice. And you got it helped Michaela, I hope, too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Did we get the aunt to listen by any chance? Because I can use more listeners.
Yeah, I should ask her. Yeah. We don't really talk, but I should throw it out there to her.
For me, really, you should talk to her.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
feels like you owe me a little bit, and this is what I'm asking for.
Yeah, sure. You got it.
Since Liam's name's not Scott, that's too late.
Yeah.
But you didn't name the next boy Scott.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
So I thank you for doing everything for this podcast.
You're very well. Listen, I'll be very honest with you. I wrote the blog because I was trying to raise awareness. And at some point during writing the blog, I realized that it was, what do they call it? Schadenfreude? What is that? It was just people complaining. So I was saying what was going wrong and other people were coming in and going, yeah, that happens to me too. It's sad. And then people would like commiserate. And I thought, oh, there's value in this. Like there's value in knowing that somebody else is going through it, but it wasn't doing enough. And so I thought like, well, I'm going to really try to help people. Like why I know this thing now, like I should tell them,
Yeah.
And then I did that and it was nice and everything. And the blog did well, but it didn't do nearly as well as the podcast. Like when I moved to podcasting, like that's when like a note a week turned into like 10 notes a day from people.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But it's just not something, the space just doesn't do what we're doing here on the podcast. Like, if you stop and think about, I don't know, Instagram content that you see, that kind of stuff around diabetes, it's all just very still like, hey, like I have a recipe for this, or don't you hate it when this happens? Like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, great. I hate it when that happens. Like, is there a way to stop it from happening? Could you tell me that?
Yeah.
And the only people who will tell you like how they manage, I mean, often are just trying to drive you to a coaching service. So they tell you a little bit and then they want you to pay them. And I'm totally not good with that either. Like, I just think that, Kerrie, between you and I, if I charged $9 a month for you to listen to this podcast, I'd be sitting in a gold chair. Okay. But
I'd pay it.
Well, you're very nice, but I'm trying very hard not to charge people for that. Like, so like to me, it's like I take ads and then the ads support the production. It takes me 60, 70 hours a week to make the podcast. So like I make the podcast and everybody gets to have these conversations. They get community, they get, maybe tips and tricks and stuff like that, or learn things they didn't know before. And there's nowhere to go. You don't have to go pay somebody. You don't have to like take a class. You don't have to have a freaking meeting with some jackass who just wants to have that meeting with you so they can charge you for it. Like that kind of stuff, I think that's important. And to me, that seems like the right thing to do. Now, don't get me wrong. If I ever lose all the advertisers, I'm 100% going to charge you for the podcast.
You definitely should.
But that at that point would be to keep it going.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd all pay it too.
Yeah. So I just want everybody. It feels really good to me to know that you found it, first of all, you said you found it in the hospital?
Yeah.
Was that just Googling?
Yeah, I Googled it and I started listening to one of the series. I think it was like, I want to say it was Bold Beginnings. I can't remember. And I had it on playing and my husband was like, Kerrie, we have so much going on right now. Can we like listen to this when we get home? Cause I was like, no, this is going to be really important to us, but we had like everybody coming in and trying to educate us so they can get us out. And so I just remember being like, okay, I'm going to come back to this because I just was overwhelmed. But yeah, I did find it in the hospital.
Tell the nurses, shh, this guy on the internet is telling me about diabetes. Hold on a second.
Yeah. And they were like, yeah.
Great, great. He doesn't have diabetes, but don't worry. We're not going to let that stop us from listening. But anyway, like so you found it that early. So in my mind, you avoided some of the heartache that I had.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure I did.
That makes me feel good. Like there's things that didn't happen to you that, trust me, you would not have found pleasant.
Yeah.
And like that, I think is terrific. And there's no reason that can't happen for anybody. I mean, you spent a reasonable amount of this hour talking about like, you just weren't getting good direction from people.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's not the norm. I think that's what happens more often than not.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So I don't want that. I don't want that to be, I don't want that to happen to you. And I don't want you to pay for it.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I'm trying to do here. So anyway, cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I was so excited for this.
Oh, good. I'm
glad. It was great to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. You were terrific. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep. Hold on one second. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, Type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. Once there was a time when I just told people, if you want a low and stable A1C, just listen to the Juicebox Podcast. But as the years went on and the podcast episodes grew, it became more and more difficult for people to listen to every one. So I made the Diabetes Pro Tip series. This series is with me and Jenny Smith. Jenny is a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She's also a registered and licensed dietitian and a type 1 herself for over 30 years. And I, of course, am the father of a child who was diagnosed at age 2 in 2006. The Pro Tip series begins at episode 210 with an episode called Newly Diagnosed or Starting Over. And from there, all about MDI, pre-bolusing, insulin pumping, bumping and nudging, variables, exercise, illness, injury, surgeries, glucagon, long-term health, bumping and nudging, how to explain type 1 to your family, postpartum, honeymoon, transitioning, all about insulin, temp basals. These are all different episodes, setting your basal insulin, fat and protein, pregnancy, the glycemic index and load, and so much more, like female hormones and weight loss. Head now to juiceboxpodcast.com. Go up in the menu at the top and click on Diabetes Pro Tip. Or if you're in the private Facebook group, there's a list of these episodes right in the featured tab. Find out how I help keep my daughter's A1C between 5.2 and 6.2 for the last 10 years without diet restrictions. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Start listening today. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.